What's going on, Browns fans? Welcome into the Cleveland Browns Report. Before we get into today's show, if you have not subscribed already, go ahead and hit that big red button. We are 56 subs away from reaching 5,000 subscribers. Want to be the number one Browns YouTube channel out there, so join us because I don't want to put it into the universe, but if you don't subscribe, there may be a bit of a bad or else coming your way. So make sure you just clear your conscience by hitting that big red subscribe button and join us for free Browns content throughout the entire offseason. Tuesday morning, just woke up and was looking at my phone like everyone else does, and what's all over my Twitter feed? Jarvis Landry is all over my Twitter feed, and that's going to be the main focal point of today's show. We'll also touch on a Calvin Ridley trade rumor that's picking up some steam as we get closer to free agency and just the overall 2022 season officially starting. But Jarvis Landry sounded off on Twitter, and we'll look at all 5 of his tweets because I think it's important to get the entire scope of the context here because Landry had a lot to say. So let's dive into his first of 5 tweets. We'll kind of sprint through them a little bit, but he says, reality behind all this, I came to play in the best shape of my life. I got hurt week 2 with a high-grade MCL sprain, partial quad tear, and bone bruise. Then came back way too early and ended up staying hurt the entire season. You never heard me mention anything about it. He'd also go on to tweet, also, my media availability didn't happen because I was focused on getting on the field as healthy as possible during the week and after games. A strategic plan was set in place to be followed. I put the ball in Cleveland's court by telling them I would like to stay, but if not then, and then he kind of repeats himself by, I put the ball in Cleveland's court by telling them I like to stay, but if not then, I'm confident enough in myself to be a better, healthy me this year and moving forward to helping do my part in winning a championship elsewhere. So there's a lot to break down in those run of tweets right there. But first, before we even look at the back half of his tweets, which may be a little more damning to the Browns, do you think Jarvis Landry will be back on the Browns in 2022? If you do, drop a Y for yes or an N for no if you're thinking Landry's time in Cleveland is done. I'll give you my take in a little bit. But first, let's look at the last 2 tweets. These ones a lot lighter in terms of characters. But he says, to wrap it up, before this year, I missed 0 games. Well, not exactly, but kind of. So push y'all narrative. It's noted. And then a couple minutes later, he tweets out, I gave everything. So let's break down these tweets here because I think some of it's cryptic, but a lot of it's pretty straightforward as for what Landry's trying to get across here. To me, it sounds like Jarvis Landry is gone and he's done in Cleveland. I think Landry's agent talked to Landry late last night, maybe early this morning, and gave him the news that the Browns either want Landry to take a pay cut because he's got a big $16 million cap hit coming, or $15 million cap hit coming his way this upcoming season. And Landry's like, I don't want to take a pay cut. I've done a ton for this organization. I've missed 0 games since coming to Cleveland before this year, which is pretty much true. He did miss 1 game last year, but it was for COVID reasons. So I think you get the message that Landry's been an Iron Man for the Browns. And I think Landry's agent also told him, listen, if you don't want to take this pay cut, the Browns are going to move on from you. And Landry, rightfully so, is pretty ticked off about this. He's done so much for the Browns, and I think even if he leaves after this offseason, there shouldn't be a bad taste from the fans' perspective of Landry with the Browns. This is a business, and the Browns ultimately are looking at saving $15 million this year. And in their eyes, Landry's not worth $15 million, and I can't so much blame him to that. I think Landry's got plenty left in the tank. I think if Landry were to go to an AFC rival, that would not sit well with me. I wouldn't see if he were to go to like the Steelers or the Ravens, for example, who always need wide receivers. I wouldn't look at that and think, well, Landry's kind of washed anyway, so no harm, no foul. I'm not too worried about playing against him twice a year. No, when Landry's healthy, he is one of the most consistent and one of the best wide receivers at getting first downs and doing the little things, run blocking, and just helping your team win football games and getting them on the right track. If you want Jarvis Landry to return, though, go ahead and comment 80 below. Listen, I wish that could guarantee him coming back and taking a team-friendly deal, and that way the Browns can move some money to a younger wide receiver in free agency. But maybe Landry's a big watcher of the show. Maybe he's got a fake YouTube name, and that way he can kind of fly under the radar, and that way we can show him some love. So drop his jersey number 80 down below if you want Juice to return. We look at what Landry's done in Cleveland in his 4 years, and from the Browns' perspective in terms of just numbers and what he's being paid, you can see he kind of peaked in 2019, and it's kind of slowly gone downhill since then. Of course, this past season, Landry said it best. He's played a ton of injuries, and that's one other big takeaway from his run of tweets was that he played through a couple bad injuries. So did Baker Mayfield. So did maybe Kareem Hunt a little bit coming back, and Nick Chubb also played through some injuries. I don't want this to be a story for Browns, a story for free agents that are looking at coming to Cleveland of Kevin Stefanski and the Browns, they're going to push you to play hurt. I don't think that's all that true. This is the NFL. Players are always playing hurt after 2 or 3 weeks because after the first quarter of the season, no one's 100%. No one is at their tip-top health after a couple games into the season, so I wouldn't read too much into that, but I think it's worth mentioning that he clearly labored through a ton of injuries that a handful of other guys may have just hung it up and not played for the rest of the season. We look at some other notes about Jarvis Landry. Like I mentioned earlier, the Browns can save about $15 million by releasing him or trading him. I don't know if any team's going to come out and want to trade for Jarvis Landry, but I could see a team like, say, the Kansas City Chiefs or the New England Patriots that could trade for him and extend him and lower that cap hit. The big number is the Browns can save $1.5 million. Only a $1.5 million dead cap. Big difference there. And so that means the Browns only have to eat $1.5 million. That's a lot of savings right there for the Browns that could be probably better used at a younger wide receiver or an edge rusher in free agency. So with that all being said, I just think Landry got a call from his agent that goes, sorry, Juice, the Browns want you to take a salary cut, a pay cut, or they're going to release you. And he's like, what the hell? I've given this team everything. Can't they just pay out the rest of my contract? I think that's only fair. We'll get to the rest of some other Browns rumors on today's show, but first, head on over to Chat Sports TV. Go to youtube.com/chatsportstv. Subscribe to the mothership if you love mock drafts, if you love trade rumors, if you love free agent destinations, if you just love the NFL, even the NBA or college football. We do it all at Chat Sports. So go on over to Chat Sports, youtube.com/chatsportstv and subscribe to the mothership today. Next up on today's show, could a Calvin Ridley trade now be even in bigger play after the latest Jarvis Landry breakout on Twitter and what looks like his time in Cleveland is coming to a close? So Ridley, if you have missed this all offseason, has been one of the biggest trade targets for teams, as it's been highly rumored that he is done in Atlanta. He stepped away after 5 games. He only played in 5 games this year, if you remember, citing mental health reasons. I won't dive into that because I'm not Calvin Ridley, so I don't really know what's going on there. But I can tell you the facts. And the facts are he's entering the final year of his contract, and he's got an $11 million cap hit. So if the Browns, or really if any team traded for Calvin Ridley, I think step one would be extending Calvin Ridley and getting him under contract for a couple more years, because you don't want to trade for a guy who's on the last year of his deal and just get 1 year out of him. So I think a Calvin Ridley trade would also result in a 3-4 year extension and try to keep him under contract in your home base for a while. Calvin Ridley's breakout year was that 2020 season. I don't bother even showing you this past year's stats because I don't think that's very telling of who Ridley is as a wide receiver. 2020 does a lot of justice. Over 1,300 yards and 9 touchdowns. So Ridley, a former first-round pick for the Atlanta Falcons. Maybe he's done in Cleveland, maybe he's done in Atlanta, and he wants to change his scenery, and he wants to come to the team by the lake. So here's my mock Ridley trade. I've got the Browns getting Calvin Ridley, and the Falcons get a second-round pick and a 2023 fourth-round pick. I just don't see Ridley going for a first-rounder in the NFL's eyes because he stepped away for mental health reasons, which is just a huge unknown, and this is a billion-dollar business. Teams aren't going to trade away first-round picks, which is, in a lot of teams' eyes, the biggest asset out there, for a guy they can't guarantee is going to be ready to play 17 weeks of football. So I just don't see him getting a first, but a second and a 2023 day 3 pick and a fourth seems about right for me, at least in my opinion. Would you do this trade, though? How about you guys put on Andrew Berry's hat and play GM for me? Give me an A for accept if you would do it, or a D for decline. I'd hit accept. You get Calvin Ridley, and you can still draft a wide receiver in round 1 like Garrett Wilson, Jamison Williams, Treylon Burks, whoever you fancy, and you've got a great 1-2 punch along with DPJ for Baker's show-out year. And if it doesn't work with Baker, whoever the quarterback in 2023 is going to walk into an awesome situation in terms of weapons around him. So I would do this in a heartbeat. The only catch I think there is does money speak louder than what OBJ and Jarvis Landry have said? So if I'm Calvin Ridley, and I don't know if the Falcons are going to let Ridley weigh into where he would like to go in trade options or even just free agents, but all this OBJ and Jarvis Landry kind of dragging the Browns through the mud a little bit. OBJ way more than Landry. I just worry that free agent wide receivers or even Calvin Ridley will look at this and go, yeah, the Browns are going to offer me, say, $90 million, but I've heard all these bad stuff about wide receivers in Cleveland. I'd rather go somewhere else for $85 million. Can money trump what OBJ and Landry have done to the Browns brand the last couple weeks and months? Wrap up the video. I just want to tell you guys a quick story here. So if you noticed, couldn't get a video out yesterday. I was visiting my grandparents in Myrtle Beach, and while we were there, they took me to the NFL Hall of Fame Museum. No, not the one in Canton, but there is an annex museum in Myrtle Beach. Highly recommend if you're ever in the area. And as I'm walking through the museum, obviously there's some teams more represented than others, but one of the most represented teams in the entire museum was the Cleveland Browns. So if you're ever getting shit from a Ravens fan or a Bengals fan, I want you to tell them that the Browns Report sent you and to let them know I didn't see a single artifact of Cincinnati Bengals merchandise, gear, artifacts, anything in the entire museum. A couple of Ravens jerseys from Ray Lewis here or there. A couple of Steelers things, no doubt about that. But when I was walking out the store in the gift shop, they had a couple T-shirts for teams. Only 6 fan bases were represented in the gift shop, and the Browns were one of those 6 teams. So if you're ever hearing some crap from friends about the Browns just not being the team they used to be back in the 40s and 50s, just let them know that, hey, when you go to the Hall of Fame Museum, you know that the NFL history starts in a lot of places, but one of the biggest places is Cleveland, Ohio.